Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? I hope you guys can hear me. Today we're continuing building out our amazing application. Today we're going to work on building a form using React, making sure that we could log in users. We're going to start with the UI first. I hope everybody's doing great, by the way. Let me know how you guys are doing. Let me know if my audio is good. Got my drink here. I'm ready. So we're going to do a lot of exciting stuff, As we wait for everybody to jump on, I'm just gonna talk a little bit. How's everybody's weekend? I guess today's Tuesday. How's everybody's Monday? I hope you guys being productive. I hope you guys doing what you guys need to do. And we're gonna continue the series building out our project. Those of you who are jumping in and kind of trying to figure out what we're building, I'll kind of show you the minimum viable kind of MVC that we're working on, because what you want to do is you don't want to build a complex application with so many features that you basically get stuck and you don't know what to do. We start with simple functionality, and what's cool about the functionality that we're doing is going to make sure that our backend is hooked up, our front end is hooked up, our styling works, and then be able to make API calls to our strappy backend. And this will allow us to add additional functionality, easier, so we basically get the basic skeleton of everything we need. We got the database, we got the front end, we got the back end, and now we're just gonna continue working. So I'm gonna switch my screen here to kind of show you. And so what we're working on is this very simple application, and we're basically gonna have cards like this, which are going to show developer projects. It's super simple, and if you click the detail button, if you're not logged in, it's gonna take you to the login. And I realize I'm not sharing, I'm sharing my screen. It's gonna take you to the login, but I just realized you can't see my face that well. Let me see if I can fix it here. Where my face went. This is ridiculous. You guys need to see my face when I talk to you. So let's see if we could figure it out. I don't know how I'm gonna figure it out. Hey Paul, nice to see you. Serge, great to see you here. Try to figure out my camera. Something's happening with it. But we're working on building out and continue building out our application. It's going to be exciting. I'm excited as always to make it work. Now let me switch here to my other screen so I could figure out what is happening. Oh, it's too zoomed in. That's not the one that I want. Ugh. Where's the camera? Where's the camera button? Like you would think like I would learn how to use my software and be ready for these professional streams, but honestly sometimes things don't work like they're supposed to. So we try to figure out as we go. I'm like moving everything around. Let me switch back to this screen. Anyway, let me know in the comments how you guys doing while I figure this out. I thought I had it all prepared, but apparently not. Apparently I did not have everything as prepared as I wanted to. There's this one screen on my software where it always disappears, and I always wondered like where did it go? Like I'm like I don't know where it went. It just disappeared on me. So I'm like moving stuff around, trying to figure it out. Yep, breaking things as always. But in the meantime, we're gonna wait for everybody to jump in. It's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be nice. Get everybody going. It's gonna be great. Yeah, that is messed up. I'm gonna make a complaint to the software I'm using. Be like, hey, listen, the one screen, the most important screen that allows me to control my camera, disappears. It's like, why? Where does it go? Where does it have to go? It needs to be in front so I could kind of see what I'm doing. And it's like, no, it would be too easy if we made the software easily accessible for you. It would have no problem. Dio's doing good. I'm doing pretty good. I'm ready to get this started. Hey yo, what's up? How's it going? Hologram Nunchucks, how are you doing today too? Like, man, I'm excited. I just got to fix my camera a little bit before we jump right into it. There's this one setting. It always disappears. Always disappears. I'm like, it annoys me. I'm like, why show all windows? And when I do show all windows, it doesn't even show all the windows. That's just great. View, appearance, full size, show sidebar, show move sidebar, move panel. Okay. Let me figure this out. This is like ridiculous. It's all right. The party will go on. I just want to make sure that you guys like. I have to move my head. I gotta move my camera here. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Anyway, but this will give everybody to get on. Watch me fail a little bit before we jump in and knock it out of the park with this amazing presentation today. Working on, what are we gonna work on today? We're gonna work on building a login form. It's gonna be great. Yeah, the new single you released is the Fire Grammy nomination for sure. Yeah, thanks, man. I was just having a little bit of fun. You know, the new single you released is fire for sure. I'm not gonna put you guys through it again on the live stream, but yeah, you guys, if you haven't seen it, it's pretty hilarious. Live, Ecamm Live. Okay, I'm getting there. Camera, yes, Toby, select all cameras, overlays, recording output options, scene, intro screen. Okay, edit. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Never happened before. Stream size options, view, windows. Show all Unity utility windows. Ah, that's the button I was looking for. I figured it out. You know, only took me 20 minutes, but now I'm able to go like boop, 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 fix my face so you guys could see me better. I could talk to you guys. Yeah, anyway, so we're gonna jump in right into it, make it happen, make it work, make it do stuff. So we're working on building a big project. And here's the thing, like when you start building anything, you don't start with trying to build everything at once. You wanna build the smallest thing possible that allows you to kind of get the functionality you want. And so let me show you kind of what we started working on. Let me share my screen here. I am sharing my screen already. So we're basically building this very simple view for our website. We're gonna build this project called Dev Hunt. It's gonna be a website where you'll be able to post your portfolio, share your portfolios, like and comment and upload things, stuff like that. But more importantly, eventually you'll be able to manage your projects and have other people like comment and help you make sure that you're getting stuff done. But that's a lot of like scope. So we're starting super simple. We're gonna have this view that's just gonna show cards with users or developers being able to showcase their portfolio. If you hit the detail button and you're not logged in, it's going to take you to the login form. And that's kind of what we're going to work on today. And again, this is just a mock-up. It's not going to look like this. And we're not going to focus on CSS. We're just going to try to mock everything out really quickly because we really want to get the functionality working first, because that's more important. And then if you're logged in, you'll be able to see more detailed of like the portfolio, the project that the person's working. You'll be able to leave comments and stuff like that, have the GitHub link and stuff like that. So very simple. That's what we want to start with. And we're going to slowly build the functionality and add to it. And for our database, we have it in Postgres, and we have 4 different data types in our database. We have our likes that we're keeping track of all the likes. We have our portfolios, because obviously you want to keep track of portfolios because this is going to be a portfolio manager. We're going to have a field for comments because obviously we want to track comments, and we're going to have users because you guys are going to be users. So here's what we've done so far. We created this basic layout, kind of looks similar to this. You know, again, we'll clean up the CSS later. We want the functionality first. That's what we're working on. And so this is what we have so far. We have our cards. All this data, by the way, is dynamically generated. It's coming from our Strappy backend here. So here's the items that we have, and they're being sent out by this API and being pulled from the API here in the front end. So this is dynamic. We didn't add the like functionality yet. We'll get there. But we do have different routes. We have our project detail. This is a private route, so if you're not logged in, you're not going to see anything. We have a login page, which we're going to work on today, and then we have our home page. This is where we at. And so we're going to start right with the login. And you guys, anytime you guys have questions, you know, ask away. Like, you gotta understand, I do these streams obviously for many reasons. Number one, I want to get better at like coding live. Number two, I want to show you guys my music volume. Surge, let me check that out here. Okay, let's adjust this, make more adjustments. Let me know if I fix it, because I want to make sure that the audio works fine for you guys all to be able to hear me, see me, because we're going to get into code. So Serge, let me know if that worked. Let me know if that fixed it. Otherwise, I'll try to figure out more stuff. But definitely want to make sure that the audio is good. So let me know in the comments if the audio is working. And yeah, so the point of having these streams is I want to make sure that, you know, I don't prepare ahead of time for these streams. I want to make sure that you see me struggle and build the things as I go along, so you can see how I get stuck, the process I use trying to figure things out or fail miserably. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want you guys to see that when you're coding at home, it's pretty much going to be the same. It's not like you're going to sit down, get stuff like, you know, knocked out and like out of the park and everything's going to be perfect. You're going to suffer, you're going to make mistakes, and at least on this live stream, you're going to suffer together. So this is what we have so far, and now we're going to work on this login page. Now, another thing that, you know, we'll just start here, and we're going to make it super simple. We're literally going to use React Bootstrap. That's what we connected last time. If you haven't seen it, I'll make a place on my channel where I'm going to have all these like playlists for these live streams, so you could always come back. But we're going to continue forward. Oh, anyway, I keep just losing my mind. The most important part I want to tell you guys, the reason why I want to do the stream is because those of you who are working and like learning, you want to switch to career, at the end of the day, you need to make sure you have a significant project, significant portfolio. And so I want to have the streams as like to showcase, look, if you come up with a plan and you do something every day, you will eventually get there. Because if you started the streams, let's say like a couple of weeks ago, you saw that we started with nothing and now we have something, we're making progress. And then after 2 months, you guys see even more progress. And so what I want to see is that to kind of show to you guys that you need to have consistent practice over time that's going to help you build portfolios. Don't try to jump around too much. That's why we picked one project. It's a significant enough project that we're going to build. Obviously, we're starting in small steps, but the most important part, if you, let's say, started watching the stream a month, 2 months ago, let's say, and then 3 months later, you still don't have a project, but I'm pretty much completed with my project, it's going to be like that. Like example by doing like here, look, we committed every Tuesday, we're here on the stream, we're working a little bit towards completing this project, and over time, over consistent effort, we're going to get it done. So that's kind of why I want to do these live streams. And even more important than that is because if you guys have any burning question about anything, I want you guys to ask. Maybe I won't have the answer, but I'll try my best to figure it out. Also, announcement here, what I want to do, I want to practice like coaching people coding. And so if you're obviously like an expert developer, and Luke, we got here, I love it, coding after 30, what? Yeah, but what I want to do is I want to dedicate like 5 hours a week where I offer one-on-one, half-hour one-on-ones. They're going to be like come first, come whatever. They're going to be free unless you want to donate, whatever. But like I want to just practice. So if anybody wants to schedule some one-on-ones with me, I'll later put a link to Calendly and you could set it up. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to get better at helping you guys. At the same time, I want to become better at teaching and coaching and solving problems and helping you guys solve yours. And in terms of getting to where you need to go to make sure you can complete your portfolio project. Anyway, coming back to the work here. So we're using React Bootstrap, and again, after the fact, we'll be able to customize our CSS as our heart desires. But for now, what I want to do is make sure that we get started and we're not like held back by trying to figure out the UI and the CSS, because the most important part of our application is the functionality. If it doesn't have the functionality, then it's just a pretty looking, you know, piece of crap. But we want to have the functionality. So we're using React Bootstrap, and then later we'll come back and we'll personalize it, make it look really awesome. Hey, Brian, great to see you, man. Good to have you here on the stream. So we installed React Bootstrap, we installed everything else. So let me like switch to my code editor. And then I close my code editor. Like I don't even know where it went. Man, no, that's the back end. Where's the front end here? We have Community 1 API, that's the back end. We have Community 1 client here. So here we go. Let me close this one. Let me make sure you guys could see this bigger. So let me see if you guys could see it. So we basically set this up And currently, this is what we have. We have our home page, and now we're gonna work on the login page. So let's go through the file structure here. I'll make this like super gigantor so you guys could see for now. So basically, when you build your React application, all the magic happens in the source folder. Apollo, we're going to talk about it later. This is what we're using as our API to be able to fetch the data from our backend. But the most important part, we're going to start with pages and components here. So pages, we have 3 pages. We have a login page, we have a home page, and detailed page. So if you take a look at the home page here, basically we have just one container that is basically from our React Bootstrap class. Makes it easier. And what the container does, if you're not sure, it basically makes sure that we are able to, you see how this doesn't span to the edge like this login does. So if I go to home, notice how we have this kind of, I guess, space here. It's because it's contained, and that's happening because of that container tag. And again, that's from React Bootstrap. Not super important at the moment, but we're just kind of going over here. And then we have our projects component, and our projects component here, basically what it does, and this is too big now, it's basically, you know, using this query that we wrote, and we'll talk more about it, but we're using GraphQL. And basically what that query does, it allows us to make an API call, which we're using with this use query hook. And then once we get the data, we're basically displaying that data in our project card component. And this is our project card component, which basically uses React Bootstrap just so we make it easier to show these awesome cards like we have here. And so now we're going to go to the login page, and we're going to work on building out our login page, right? And so it's going to be super simple, super easy. And to help us accomplish that, we're going to use React Bootstrap. And literally, like, you could go to components here. For a login page, we just need to get email and password, and we'll be able to basically go into this trusty documentation here, click, let's see, where are we going? Forms. Forms, you see here, forms, and we're literally basically going to use this code here. And this is the beauty of using React Bootstrap. It just allows you to scaffold stuff like really quickly. And obviously, you should know CSS before doing this. But the whole point is, you know, why did I decide to use React Bootstrap? Something new for you guys to look at. And at the end of the day, when you start working, you will be, like, at some point, you know, we'll have to work with some third-party library, CSS, like, library, I guess. And Bootstrap is very popular, so why not? Let's do it. And Luke here, I hate my project. Buddy, why do you hate your project? You know? You guys assume that I like all my projects. Jesus. You know, no, you just gotta, you know, power through it. And this is kind of what we're gonna try to do on the stream. You know, HD Global, what's up? Good to see you. Hi guys, hey MMA. All right, so this is what we're gonna start. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in my code here, code editor, and we already have our pages set up. So I'm gonna go to our login page that we set up here, and basically what we have here. So what we wanna do here is we want to, what do we wanna do? We wanna make sure that we have our form, and we wanna make sure we have a container for our form that allows us to kind of keep the elements nice and in the center. So what I'm going to use, I'm going to go to React Bootstrap. Okay, that's a great question. Let me come back to it. How long did I work before how long did I work with React before implementing Apollo and GraphQL? Actually, like more than like a year and a half, like working at with React. And most of that time was with, actually at work with my first initial job. And so the initial steps were using REST API and making fetch requests and using Axios. And then eventually I learned about GraphQL and how amazing it is. And so now at work, and not just the job that I have now, but also another job that I applied to, they're using GraphQL. So at some point, we all will have to know this. And again, I could have used Fetch, but the reason I'm using GraphQL is because I enjoy it and I like it. And also because I want to make sure that this project is not what everybody else is doing, you know, for the most part. Everybody's using fetch, so let's do something new, even if that makes you guys a little bit more confused. Even like the whole point why I'm here live is for you to ask questions, so eventually you ask enough questions and you eventually will start understanding stuff, and at least that's the hopes. And then like here we have, do you recommend Sass and this 71 thing? I don't know what 71 thing, what you're referring to, but yeah, Sass is good to use. That's what we're going to use here. Again, I could have went straight up CSS, or we could have used style components, or we could have used something else, but we just decided to use Sass just to kind of give you different like opinions of how you could do stuff. And all of these things you guys are going to see at your job when you start working. And that's kind of why I'm doing this project, because it's all based on the technologies that I am using at work. And that's kind of like you know, why I decided to do the things that we're doing, because the most important part is for us to make sure that I'm not just doing like tutorial after tutorial like you've seen on YouTube and seen on everything else, because that's what everybody else is doing. I want to do something that's based on like what I'm actually doing at work. So that's kind of the logic here. And so what we're going to do, we're going to start here, and this is going to be our container for our form. And I realize I have to share my screen. All right. So my screen is going. Is it big enough? Can you guys read all good? So this is going to be our login page. And so we're going to style this initial part. We're going to give it a class name, just so if we need to put custom, you know, CSS, we're going to call it login page, right? Because this is where it's at. It's I forgot to put the equal sign. Login page. And what's cool, like, you know, we could actually hook up our CSS now to test it, because we're using Sass here. Let me open up here. We have our, did I hook up Sass? Oh, I'm lying to you. I didn't even, no, I did hook up Sass. I got to get rid of these app CSS files because we're not going to be using them. I could actually go ahead and delete this now. While you guys got me here, I'm going to delete it because we don't need it. app.jsx, it's fine, it's not using it. So we're going to use this Sass file. And right now we didn't do too much CSS, but we're basically importing Bootstrap into our Sass file. And instead of just having one big gigantic file where we write stuff down, we're just going to create another file, and we're going to call it login page. So any CSS that's responsible with the login page, it's going to be here. And what I'm going to do, just to kind of test it, I'm going to target our login page, and we're going to throw in a background of red just to make sure that it's connected, to make sure our CSS or Sass is working. So let's see. And right now it's not going to work because we're exporting this index CSS. So we want to import our login page. What am I doing? Want to import our login page CSS, and then at this point when we switch back to the screen, it's broken. Nope, it's not broken. So the login page works. You see the styling, so it's connected, looking good. So we're gonna continue with it. So what we want to make sure is that we have this displayed basically full width for the login, and so we're going to handle that in just a second when we do our login form here. Okay, but all right, I'm looking at the comments here. Oh, no new comments here. And so we're gonna keep at it. So we could make this, you know, take up full width. So I could go to my, and we'll refactor stuff, but it's just always fun to do it. So now if I want to make any styling in my login here, I could do height, you know, 100% VH, which is your view height of the whole screen. And what's interesting about this, when you see me switch back, when I go back to my application here and refresh, notice how I'm able to like scroll and it makes it's kind of like too big, right? Because the height of this plus this 100%, obviously if this is 100% the view height, so from whatever from here to here is, plus our basically navigation, it's too big. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that the login page, it all fits on one screen, including showing the navigation. So there's a couple of ways of doing it, but I'm going to show you this fix first, and we'll refactor. So what I could do is actually use the calc function, and I could basically do 100 view height minus, and I forgot to check what this is, I think it's 56 pixels, the height of the navigation. And so you could actually do, by using calc function here, to calculate the difference. So now if we go back and refresh, notice how it's perfectly fit. It's no longer scrolling too much. And I'm going to inspect here just to kind of see. Yeah, so we could see here our height of our toolbar is 56 pixels. And so we basically subtracting 100 view height minus 56, which basically allows us to make sure that everything looks normal and good here. So here we go. So that looks good. So next thing we want to do, we want to put like some form inside here. And by the way, guys, if you don't have questions, make some up. You know, you got to have a question. So we're in a login page. So we want to have a login form here. So instead of doing all of our logic here, right, and like having a lot of code here, let's kind of create our form component and start there. And you know what I'm going to do here, go to my components. By the way, guys, here's a big mistake I made here. Notice how I'm in the master branch. You don't want to make changes in the master branch. What you want to do is you want to have a feature branch. So before we get too far, let me go ahead and do that. We're going to create a new branch. We're going to call it sign in form. So we make sure that whatever changes we make in this branch so we don't break anything. So we switch branches to sign in form. Perfect. So we're good to go. So let's take a look at some questions. I'm about to give you some horror stories because I already see the question you're looking to ask me. So Eli, I'm bad at pronouncing last names. My last name is pretty bad too. What's your first ticket from your initial job for web development? It also related to React or just CSS edits? Actually, no. My first job, they basically just threw you into the deep water with the sharks. And so my ticket was very, very complex for me starting out. I basically had to not only create a view for a particular page, but I also had to make sure that I'm able to connect to the API and able to get the data to show on the screen. And then we also had a form that I needed to create that would update the data. And then I needed to make sure that I was familiar with SQL to be able to see the data change in the backend. And by the way, that took me weeks before I figured out how to do that. I'm amazed I didn't get fired. And this is kind of why I'm showing you this project, because sometimes you're going to get a job and that's what it's going to be like. It's not going to be some simple CSS edits. I mean, I wish I was that lucky. And so this is exactly what we're doing here. We have our front end, we have our back end, we have our database with PostgreSQL, and we're looking how to work with this with a big picture. You might not be able to do everything, but you at least have an idea of how a bigger application works together, and you'll be able to figure stuff out. But yeah, that was a nightmare for me. And my first job, they didn't let up. They kept throwing, like my second week, literally, they wanted me to implement security for the whole entire application. And even the senior devs were kind of laughing when my boss told me that, because they knew that it's going to take them to do like a couple of months, let alone me, a little old junior developer, not knowing anything, to be able to kind of like not do anything. You know, like how am I gonna do it myself? So that was like ridiculous. So anyway, we're moving on. We're gonna work on building out our login form. And so what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a separate component here. So I'm gonna go here, switch back to my work screen. And I'm gonna go, we could close these. We're gonna go to our components. We're gonna create a new folder and we're gonna call it, what do we should call it? Because we're building a form, let's call it login form, because this is going to be a login form. At some point we're going to have a sign-in form, so I'm going to create a folder for login form. I'm going to add a new file. I'm going to call it login form JSX, and then in here we're going to do simple React functional component. You don't need to use classes anymore in React. This is one of the awesome benefits of awesome React. And this, oops, login form, and this will be our form. And just to make sure that this initially works, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my login page, and we're going to import our newly created login form. Boom, right there. And in theory, when I go to my page here now, boom, refresh, notice that we have our login form, and it looks like crap. It's not styled well. It looks like this is here. It's right here. At least we know it's showing up, right? We know it's showing up here. Login form right here. So now what we're going to do, we're going to cheat by using React Bootstrap, and we're literally going to import this code here. And I recommend, if you guys never use Bootstrap, obviously learn CSS first. You need to understand CSS, because if something breaks, you're not going to be able to fix it if you try to use Bootstrap right away. And I'm also going to open up Bootstrap documentation just in case if we have to see it, because right now we're using React Bootstrap, which is I just want to search Bootstrap 5, React Bootstrap, which basically has some pre-made components that use Bootstrap styling. But this is vanilla Bootstrap, just in case if you have to look it up and stuff like that. So I'll keep it open here. But anyway, coming back to our application. Yeah, Eli, I did do a lot my first week. Like I said, I'm just lucky I didn't get fired, but that's the way it is. So we're working on a login form. We just created a separate component. What's cool about it, all the changes that we're going to make, we're going to make it to this login form component. It's all in one place. And so you guys saw me, I just copy and pasted the code from React Bootstrap. Let's see, format document, make it look nicer. And this is basically squiggly lines because we want to import form from React Bootstrap. Like, you know, we use the power of the libraries. You know, why not? Why not? React. Like, I can't type because my mic is in front of my face, but then when my mic is not in front of my face, people can't hear me, so I gotta do stuff. So let's, like, we just pasted this code. Okay, we need to import this button here. Form, we need to do button. All right. We go to our application, and look at that. Our form is pretty much done. Look at that. Ugly, but it's there. So actually, hologram, that's a great question. Outside of use state, use effect, use context, what other hooks do you use? Pretty much those. That's it. Like, there's really, like, nothing else. Like, you might actually create your own custom hooks, which is kind of cool. But like a lot of times, this is all you're gonna basically use. There's a use memo hook, which you never use. So like, I've been working for like 3 years now, and I haven't used, like, these are 99% of the hooks, which is amazing with React currently, because this allows you to like build a lot of stuff without too much like thinking, because that's pretty much all you use. So if you understand how use effect, use context, and use state works, then you're pretty good to go. And you'll see as we build this application, and today you'll see that we'll use state, and we'll probably get to using use effect hook today. And then for context, you're probably not even going to get to context for a while, because I'll show you that for certain information, storing it in local storage is good enough. So we have our form. It looks but ugly, but we got there. And so we're going to keep making progress. We're going to make progress. So we made the form. What I'm going to do here is that we don't need this checkbox. So I'm going to remove this checkbox. And we don't need this. We'll never share your information with anyone else. I mean, we could keep it, but whatever. We don't need it. We only need the email address and then the password. So let's look at the code here. So it looks nice. We're making progress. So what I want to do now is I want to make sure that this is not full screen like it is now. Let me actually close this, but it's more in the center. And so we could use this, either write the CSS from scratch or use the power of React Bootstrap. So what I'm going to do, and I'll explain to you what I'm doing, guys, And listen, when you're coding on your own, the most important thing that you guys have to remember is that it's okay if you're not sure how to do something. And the process of going back and forth from the documentation and reading, like for instance, I could go to React Bootstrap and look up container, and it basically shows you container is like a wrapping element that you're able to use to contain your divs or whatever you're going to put inside within like a screen. Like the best explanation here, if you look here, right now it's not contained. The menu's contained because you see like kind of border here. Like you'll see it better at the home section. See how we have spacing here, spacing on the left here, and the right here is because we're using container. So let's go to our form, add a container wrap here. Instead of this div, we're going to call it container, and see how that changes our code here. So we'll go back to our code. Let's go to login. So notice now we have this padding here, but it's still too like huge, you know, like I'm just not happy with it. So to fix it, what we'll do, and again, notice how they literally have examples here. You have a container, and inside a container you could put a row. So why don't we do that? We're going to put a row, and we're going to, let's go back here so you could see, we're going to put a row here. So, and again, I'm not sure what a row is, Paul. Well, row is a React Bootstrap made component that utilizes the Bootstrap 5 row class. Oh, I hit the wrong button. And so again, if we are not sure what anything is, this idea of going back into documentation, checking it out. And they're just showing you examples here. So you have a container has to go have a row. And if you want to have columns, right, you could add columns inside that row. And that's kind of what we're going to use to make our form. And row is not defined. Don't forget to import stuff. So we have container, we have row. So what we want to do is make sure we always import the components we're using. So now if I take a look, it looks no different, but now we could break it down into this column. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a column inside here that we're going to, right here, column, and then I'm going to wrap column here. Yeah, and if you guys have questions about anything, let me know. I know this is like the wild, wild west. Again, it's the red squiggly line because we have to import it here. And once that's imported, that works. And if you look here again, on our app, nothing changes. But now I could go into documentation. Notice how you could use extra small. So if I put extra small 6 on extra small devices, this will take 6 spaces or columns. It's like 1 through 12. Like if you think of the grid, if you separate your screen like into a grid, you could basically tell it how big you want it to go. And responsiveness comes out of the box because I could define, extra small column B, take up 12 spaces, and I could show you here by example. And so if I do here column, I do, let's say, we'll start with extra small, and I want to make sure that it takes the complete width of the screen. So I could say 12 here, because 12, it's like if you break down your page, it's got like 12 columns basically. That's how they created the Bootstrap grid. It's very common. They use it a lot of times. And let's say for medium devices, we want it to be, what do we want it to be? We want it, let's say, to take half the screen. So we'll put it to 6 here. And so now when I go back, notice because we're on like medium to large, it's going to take half the screen. And if I shrink it down, notice how now it takes the full width of the screen. If I get to medium, as soon as I hit medium screen here, it gets size 6. And if I keep scrolling, it'll stay 6. So let's say for extra large, for some reason, I wanted it to be, full screen again, just to kind of show you. Because using Bootstrap, I would do large, and I would do 12, which I don't know why I would do that, but just to kind of show you by example, So when I go to my application, notice how it's full width. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make it, I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to keep it 6. Why not make it even 5? Make it smaller. And so this is built into the Bootstrap component. Now, if you want to add custom, class names, like for instance, I want this to be more centered, so I could go here in my row, and what I could do is I could add a class name, and I'm going to type it first, and then I'm going to show you where to find it. Instead of writing in the CSS, Bootstrap already has classes that are already pre-made, so we want to, like, rows by default have flex on them already, so I could do justify content. And if you have VS Code, there's a Bootstrap plugin that could give you these code completions. So we want to do justify content medium center. So on medium screens, we want everything to be in the middle. And then we're going to do align center. Why not? Item center. And I'll show you where to find it. And then we'll talk a little bit about Flexbox, because this is what's it using. It's using Flexbox. And then let's see what that does. And so boom, look, it's right there in the middle, looking better already. And login page, we don't need that. Let's remove that. So let's go to our login page. We'll kind of get this out of the way. And so our login form is taking shape, let's see here, looking good. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to continue building this out. And again, we're not going to go making it as pretty as possible first. We're going to look at making it functional first. But doesn't mean that it has to be this ugly. So what I'm going to do is kind of remove that ugly red color for now, looking good. And then let's go back to our form. So we have our form, and we have our form fields here. We have the email and we have our password. And so what we want to be able to do, we want to make sure that we're able to, when people type, we want to make sure that we're able to get that data. So how do you get the data from an input form in React? That's pretty much like what the video is going to be about here. Like, how do you do that? And Eli, bro, you brought a light on me on how to actually use the documentation, because what I usually read the whole documentation first and confuses me with a lot of info. Yeah, 100%. I just I do it on need to know basis. It's like, what I need to know, that's what I look up and read, and you do it enough. And notice how I always have the documentation open, because I want to jump back and forth. And like right now, like for instance, we're working, like I already know how to do this, but I'm just going to show you React form. And like you just search, and then you go React form JS, and it kind of shows you, okay, you have to make a form. And then it talks about controlled components versus not controlled. We're going to use controlled components, and they're showing a class implementation. We're going to do by using useStateHook, and they're not going to show it here yet, because first they show the old way, the class way, but we could use useStateHook, but the documentation is there and it shows you. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do, this is our form. It's ugly. We'll fix the CSS in a bit. Let's get the functionality down. So we're going to go to our form, and what we want to do is we want to save the input into state. So we know we're going to have a state of the form. So I'm going to make an initial variable here. I'm going to call it initial form state. We could call it whatever we want. And I know that we're going to have two pieces of information. We're going to have email, and for now it's going to be blank. And I'm just going to do blah, just so you could see how this works for a second. At email. And then I'm going to have password. Obviously, when we show the password, we're not going to, see it, because it's going to have the little stars, because nobody wants to see the password. But I'm just going to type password here, just you guys could see it here. So we're going to have initial state, and we want to have set our initial state to something. So I'm going to pull in from React here useState hook. That's what we're going to do. And if you never know, like, what does useState do? You go to the React documentation, you go to the search here, type useState. Like, that's why you guys have the documentation for you guys to read. Notice I don't use a tutorial. I read the documentation. They show you a good example here. Look, you put it, you know, you have the state, you have a set state function, and then you call the useState hook and you put in or pass whatever the initial state you want it to be. And a lot of times, sometimes people will leave it blank. I'm going to copy and paste it so you could see that it's going to work. I'm going to paste it here, and initial state, if you have nothing here, it will be automatically set undefined. Depending what you're doing, sometimes people will do null for whatever reason. For us, we're going to use our initial form state that we called before. So, and I'm gonna rename this to form data. This is our getter function, it gets the data, and this is our setter function, and we're just gonna call it set form data, something that makes sense, and you'll see us use it in just a moment. But we're gonna use the form data. We already have initial state, and before making it blank right now, I'm just gonna show you how to access that. We're gonna go to our form control here, and we're going to add a value here, and our value is going to be this initial state. So I'm gonna say form data dot email, form data dot email. So this is being pulled from our state. So if I go here, notice it has blah email, like whatever, because that's our initial state. Normally you don't want to have someone's email in the initial state, you want it to be blank. So I'm gonna go back here and I'm going to make this blank. It's empty, and then you guys get the point, but I'm going to make the password empty. So we know that we're passing initial state. And let me close this window to make it bigger here. And I'm going to do the same thing, and let me format this so it's all prettier. So it's all nice like this. And then we're going to do the same thing here for password. We're going to pass the value prop, and the value is going to be form data dot password. And you guys know where that's coming from. It's coming from our initial state here. This is where we're getting it. And the reason why we're doing it is initial state for our form, we want it to be blank. So we want to dictate that that's the state we want. So now we are passing state from our initial state from useState hook, and we're passing to our form. We know it works, like because I showed you here. If I type something here and go to my application and refresh it, notice you see whatever I type, but we want to be able to type in the form. Notice like right now, I try to type, nothing happens. And we basically need to hook up this form where whenever this changes, whenever someone types, the input box, we want to get that state into our state. So let's go ahead and do that now. And if you guys have questions or confused, that's why I'm here, guys. This is what we do. So we're going to make this again be blank and empty, and what we're going to do next here, we're going to create a function to handle form change, handle input change. You could call it whatever you want, and let's type function keyword first because that's what we're going to do. Handle input change, and what this is going to do, it's going to get the input and it's going to set it into our state. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it wrong way first, and then we could kind of see why it's broken here. But notice how this is an object, and I want to make sure that whenever someone types an email, it changes the email, and if someone types password, we change the password. So a good way, like in theory, like what I want to do here is I want to have something like whenever someone types an email, their email goes here, or whenever someone types password, right, their password goes here. But every time people are going to type in the input field, we want to make sure that you're not overriding previous state, right? We want to make sure that the email stays in. So one way to accomplish this, or the only way to accomplish this in our set form data, is we want to use the previous state, and this is something that you could read under the documentation. This is just how you do it, but you do previous state and you return a function which is going to return our state object here. And so we want to destructure previous state, kind of what we had there before. And then we want to add, let's say if we change it to email, we want to add the email. But instead of hard coding it like this, we're going to, because we have access to the event here, and I'm going to console log the event here so you guys could see. And then I'll just write event. Normally people use E, but I'm going to type event here. And we want to get the event that we're working on. And so we're not going to set the state yet. Oops, I deleted it. We're not going to set the state yet, but oh my God, I keep deleting stuff. Where's that? But let's take a look at the event object. So first of all, I'm going to hook up this onChange here. And so what I'm going to do here, because I want to make sure that I have access to the email input or the password input, one way to target it is by using a name attribute. So I'm going to call this email. And then here on the bottom, I'm going to call name equals password. And so let's see where it gets. It's still not going to do anything exciting yet. And what I want to do is I want to onChange call this handle input change function. So what I'm going to do here after value, I'm going to do onChange. And I'm going to pass that above function that we did called handle input change. And it's basically going to be the same thing here. And so let me put that here, there. Perfect. So now let's go to our form here and inspect. And we're not going to have too much exciting stuff here, but notice when I start to type here, we have this stuff shows up. And you see like synthetic base event, and it shows what event it is. So it's basically firing our onChange. And if we open this up, we have this idea here of target. If we hit target, we open that up. Let's take a look. We should have target.value and target.name. So let's scroll. Name, see, email. So that's because we were working on the email field. If I go type here, password, nothing's going to work here because we didn't hook it up. But if you scroll down and we open up that event that fired that we console login, we go to target and we go to name. Let's scroll down to name. Look, it's password. So we're able to use that to identify which input we're working here. So if we go to our code here, we know that if we want to set the name, we have access to it in event.target.name. So if that's email, and by putting in the brackets like this, this will set it to whatever we called it. So if we called it email, it's going to be email. If we called it password, it's going to be password, and it's like dynamic. And what we want to set it to, event.target.value. So basically, and I'll console log this stuff so you guys could see, because that's how we learn. We mess around with stuff. So it's basically gonna show us when we make changes in the email target, it's gonna show us the value of that email that we're typing, and it's gonna actually update it here in state. So let's kind of go back here and check it out. So we go to our application here. So notice, I'm gonna erase this for now. I'm gonna start typing paul@email.com, and notice in the console log we're able to get that information. So we're getting that data. And let's say if I try the password, I'm typing the password, notice how the state changes. So we basically hooked up our input to work with our state. So next we're going to work on submit, just to kind of set up the basic kind of functionality to make sure it works. But notice that we now have our form hooked up to state, meaning whenever I type something in my input here, right, it's saved to state. And so we'll be able to submit this information. And so let me go back here. And what's cool, like if you wanted to, have a button here, I'll just show this as an example. We're not gonna, use it, but I'm gonna make a button here. secondary, and I'm going to call it reset form, just to show you how easy it is. So let's say I come here to my application. Let's say I type stuff. I'm like, instead of like deleting it like this, I want to click this reset form button and to be able to reset it. So you saw me click the reset form button and you think it reset its state. It didn't reset the state. It actually refreshed the whole screen. Notice when I hit reset again, it does this little thing here. It's because it refreshes the screen. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that whenever we click this button, it doesn't refresh the screen. It doesn't do anything here, and it's because the reason why it does it is because it is the type submit button. We don't want to have a submit button here. We just want to have a regular button. If you put a submit attribute on your button, anytime you click it, it will automatically going to fire submit form here. So we don't want to do that. So for this button, we just want nothing to happen. So let's try it again here. So I go to my code, I hit reset, now nothing happens. I could type stuff here, and notice whenever I click reset form, nothing happens. It doesn't reset my form. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add an onClick event. And it's super easy. We already have our setter here called setFormData. So I could literally go ahead and call it here. And if you want to call it from within here, you got to do it within a function like I'm doing here right now. And what we're going to pass here is our initial state that we define on top, right? This is our initial state, our empty fields. So now we basically, let me format this so it looks better. We created our button, we added onClick event here that we tied down to our setFormData state, and we're setting that state to initial state. So now we have that easy reset button. So if I come back here, I type whatever I want, and now when I hit reset, notice how it resets everything back to the beginning. It resets our state. So that's an onClick event. And when you're working with React, obviously you're not going to know what these things are or like whatever. And that's when you go to the documentation. You could type synthetic events, and it's going to show you all the events that are available to you, working. So you have focus event, you have mouse events. So let's see here. And basically you look through the documentation, it shows you all the different events that you have. The most common ones we use is onClick, onChange, you use like focus, but you could look at 4 events. You have onChange, onInput, onSubmit. We're going to use that next just to kind of show you here. So we're going to go to our form and we're going to add our onSubmit event. And this is going to, we're going to write this function in a second. We're going to call handle submit form. And we're going to put our logic here. The reason it's red because it doesn't exist. So let's do function here. And we're going to call it handle submit form because that's what we called it on the bottom. And we're going to pass the event here. And we're going to do alert form submitted. And let's check it out here. So let's go back here. So now if I hit submit, notice it says form submitted. As soon as I click this OK, it's hard to see, but it refreshes the form. We don't want our regular JavaScript DOM to have its own functionality where when you submit the form, it refreshes the form, because we're not using old way of where we're connecting to PHP to make a request. We're using React. So what you want to do is called prevent default, which will prevent default functionality here. So it's not going to refresh here, and we have access to that via the event object here, and we're just going to call it prevent default. So now whenever I submit the form, it's not going to refresh the screen. So if I go back here now, here, notice I hit submit, notice how it doesn't like jump, it doesn't refresh. So our submit button works. So what we want to do, we'll do very simple check for now, and then eventually we'll make it more complex. But for now, we don't want, like right now, if I type whatever email and forget to type the password and I hit submit, it submits the form, but I don't want to submit the form when stuff is missing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a very simple check in my handle submit form, where we're going to basically check if our form data dot email, and if you're wondering where does form data comes from, it comes from our state that we define ourselves here. So form data dot email, is not equal to, basically if it's not empty, then you could go ahead and submit the form. But if it is empty, don't do it. And then we also want to write we want to make sure that the password is also not empty, right? Because if the password is empty, you shouldn't be able to submit the form. So we'll write another check, form data dot password, and we're going to check if the password is not empty. So basically, if the password and email is not empty, we're going to move form submitted to this code block. And else, they didn't fill out all the information. So for now, we'll just put a message says here, control copy. Please fill in all fields, whatever. And so this is our basic check. So now, based by this logic, whenever we click our submit button, because I have submit here, type submit button, it's going to fire the form submission, which is going to fire this unsubmit handle submit form function that we wrote here. And when we fire that function, it's going to check, is form email empty? If it's not empty, you're good to go. Form data password, is it empty? If it's not empty, you're good to go. So it's going to show this code block. But if any of these fields is empty, it's going to basically say like, hey, if the fields are not empty, it's going to allow you to submit the form. If they are empty, it's not going to submit the form. Let's see this in action, guys. So if I go here, and right now, so let me refresh here. I'm going to type in just my email, and when I hit submit, look, please fill in all the fields. So I'm going to type password, but I'm going to delete the email and click submit. Please fill all the form. No, you need to have a email and password. Now when I hit submit, it says form submitted. And so now what we want to do, we want to console log at least the data that we're going to be sending to our API, which we're not going to handle in this video. We're going to focus more on fixing the UI and making it look a little bit better, and and talk about it. But we want to at least make sure that we could console log the data that we're going to send. So what I'm going to go here, we're going to make an object here, and I'm going to sell data, and the data is going to be email is going to be equal to form data dot email, and then password is going to be equals form data dot password. I just want to make sure that when we submit the form, we're able to at least see this data. And because we're using Strapi to log in, and I'll kind of show you why we need this data. But first, let's make sure it works. So let me reset the form. Coding after 30, some password, hit submit, form submitted, and notice how it shows this object with the email and the password, basically what we need to submit the form. So if you go to Strapi documentation here, those are the two things we need to implement our login authentication with Strapi. So let's go to docs and resources, and I'm going to search authenticated request. So introduction, blah, 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 blah. You scroll. So you could do it either with the username, email, or password. We're deciding to do it with email and password. And then here it shows you to fire the login functionality. You basically make a call. They're using Axios, but you could use fetch. In our case, you're going to use GraphQL. But basically, you need to have the email. They call it identifier, so we're going to switch that. And then password. So we basically need to have this information to connect our functionality together. So we go back to the code, and this, they call it identifier. So I'm gonna kind of rename it to make sure that it matches the logic. Identifier, yep. And so it'll be easy once we're ready to implement it. And once we make the request, we will get back a JW token that we could use for authentication, and then the user that logged in. And so that's easy enough. So what I'm going to do now is kind of come back here, and we basically got the basic form set up in terms of functionality. And here's the approach that I want to guys show you. By the way, thank you for smashing the like button. I'm very happy to see, no matter how many of you guys joined the stream. I know these streams are not exciting, we're doing code, we're doing stuff, but I appreciate all you guys here, and I'm so happy to have you guys here. By the way, I want to make sure I get better at teaching to code. Obviously, I'm just starting out, but I decided that I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to start with 5 hours a week, maybe 4 hours a week, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do half-hour one-on-ones. So if you guys are interested in one-on-ones, let me know. And they're going to be free to start. But the reason, I want to make sure that we're doing stuff and I'm getting people that actually want to make sure they're improving. So I'm going to make this kind of it's free if you can't afford it. But if you want to donate $3, $5, whatever it is for coffee, you're more than welcome to do it, because I want to make sure that, it's you are making some sort of commitment to working together, and also supporting this channel, by the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a Calendly link for you guys, at least to test it out, and you guys could schedule some appointments with me, and I'm gonna do meet and greet first. So these are gonna be for a 15-minute meeting, and let me refresh. Oh goodness, oh come on. And this way you guys could jump on the phone with me. If you guys need help, we could introduce yourselves, we could talk about kind of where you're at, what are you looking to do. And if you're interested, and if you're not interested, I totally get it. But it's going to be, tip-based kind of coaching. I'm going to dedicate 4 hours a week. So whoever comes first, come serve. So schedule a time with me. I'd love to hear about what you're working on. I want to help you guys out. And I'm going to always have, 4 hours a week where it's going to be free or tip-based. If you want to leave me a tip, you can. You don't have to, because I want to make sure that I make myself available to you guys. Which not only allows me to practice teaching better, but also allows you to connect with me and answer your questions. And then, so even if eventually I have paid, coaching, which I've done before, I'm always going to have 3-4 hours a week where I want to, for those of you who want to get coaching, to be able to come in, even if you can't afford it. So this is going to be like a nice thing to do for the world. So why not? So I put a link in our chat here if you guys are interested. And let me know. So we're going to continue with this. Before we move on, we're going to do a quick review here. And by the way, thanks to you guys for joining me again, smashing the like button. We got more likes than viewers. I love it. So just to review what we did, we created a form component, which basically we used our React Bootstrap components, which you could read and find in the documentation. We literally went into React Bootstrap components and we looked for forms, and we used this first form. We deleted stuff that we don't need. And so notice how instead of creating this stuff completely from scratch, and we will customize this application a lot, but just to get the functionality working and tie everything together, I don't want to mess around with UI and never get anywhere. I want to get the functionality done, so that's why we did it. So this is our basic form, and we'll work on making it look better in just a moment for the rest of the stream. But for now, we got the form working. We're able to add the email, the password. It's all safe to state. We're able to reset our form. We're able to submit our form, well, if it has the email and the password filled in. And so let's take a code, look at the code. So this is just basic React Bootstrap components. And we could have made these components from scratch ourselves, but we're using the library just so we could speed through this fairly quickly. And then to manage our form, we created an initial form state. And how did I know that it should be email and password? Well, because that's what the form expects. The form expects, man, I have too many things open. Yeah, it expects email and password because I defined it. So for initial state, I'm going to set it to expect, email and password, and we make it blank because whenever people code to a form, it should be empty. They didn't fill out yet. Then we're using useState to save that form state to React state. So we're able to work with it. And so we're using useState hook, which is straight out of React, and we're passing our initial state. So whenever this loads, it will always be set to this initial state. And that's why when we go to our application here, you see the email field is empty and the password is empty. Just to kind of show you again, if I add some stuff here and go back to my app and refresh, it's going to have that initial state, whatever we saved here. So I'm going to make it 0 for now because that's what we want. We want empty. And then we created a function that would change that state. It will fire this set form data, and we're using the pattern of using previous state. So if we're making changes to, let's say, the email, it's not going to override the password because we're passing the password or whatever the previous state, and we're only making changes to the email. And vice versa, if we're making changes to the password, previous state will have the email info and it's not going to override it. So this is a very common way to do it. You will see it a lot as you guys start doing React. And we basically hooked in by using the unchanged event and passing that handle input change function that I just showed you. And then the value in the form, right, it comes from our state, our form data email. Like, right, I could type hello here, and that's what the value of the form is going to be set. That's where the value is coming from. See, hello, but we don't want it hard-coded. We want it to be dynamic. So I'm going to go to where it is, and we're getting it from state. And we did the same thing for the password. It's basically repeating. Then we added our onSubmit for the form, and we created handle submit function. We're going to make this more complex, but for now, just to get you guys started, we prevented the default refresh of the browser because we don't want it to happen because we're using React to handle our form submission. We did a very basic check, and we'll do more checks here, but for now, we basically check if the email is not empty and the password is not empty. This is what this means. If it's not equal to not empty, then submit our form and pass this data that we'll later use to actually authenticate via the backend. And if the fields are blank, right now we're showing please fill all the fields, blah blah. And we're using alert, but eventually we'll create a show error here. So if there's an error, we'll show it in our UI here. But for now, just so we could keep moving forward, one little piece at a time, we're gonna come going here. And you're awesome, man. Man, thank you, Mohib. Really appreciate it. I don't know how awesome I really am, but I try my best. And so that's basically the form undone. So now we got the functionality of the form working, at least up to this point. So now we could focus on making our UI look better. So like we're here, let me close this here. So I want to make sure that this works better. And this is a cool thing here, guys. So when you're working with CSS, a lot of times, I just opened up the inspector. I just closed it though for whatever reason. And you could write your CSS here. Like, look, you could select here. So I could here, I'm selecting my form container. I'm not happy with the fact that this column, like you see my form, it's not in the center of the screen. So I could select this div here. And I could start messing around with it. Let's say we want our form so Mohib, the really good place to go to, he asked, his question was, also, can you recommend an online CSS HTML course? Yeah, I could definitely do that. You could go to Udemy. I have many accounts, so let me log into the one where you could actually see that I bought the course already. Actually, I think I have it in this account. Let me search. It's John Smilga. He has his HTML, CSS is amazing course. His React course, JavaScript are amazing. So here it is. Let's click on it here. Yeah, so I did buy it. See, go to course. So, but let me go back to the view that matters. And again, I only recommend the courses that I actually have or took or am taking. And this course, I actually talked to John Smigla online. He's an amazing instructor. It's 36 hours of amazing content. And so this is the best course so far I recommend, because it's so much practice that you do in this course that by the time you're done with it, you're going to feel comfortable working with HTML and CSS. So this is the course I recommend. HTML and CSS tutorial project course by John Smigla. This is the first course I recommend, and that's where everybody should start. It's a massive course. Let me kind of show you guys here. Go, like he's got over 36 hours of lectures. You got HTML, so many projects, CSS tutorials. Look at these, just so much stuff. And pretty much everything you need, you know, to be able to be productive. So that's the course I would recommend. So coming back to our application, thanks for the question, by the way. So this is our form. Like what I want to do is I want to make sure that we kind of make this look better. And what I want to do is I want this form to be in the middle, and I want it not to be on the top here. And so if we look at this login page container, let's just start messing around here. This is what I like working in the yeah, and so this in the whatever this is called, I'm using inspector. Using the inspector, you could mess with your and try your CSS. So for instance, right now I kind of clicked on the the parent login page container, and I made it yellow so we could see. And so you could test stuff out here. Like for instance, I wonder if I do display flex and do justify content center, align item center. Oh, okay, so that makes it in the center. So that's a good step. So now what I could do is, you know, play around with my CSS here. And sometimes you could literally copy stuff from here, you know, once you figure out how you like how it looks. And then you could go into your code, and we know we're working in the login page here. I'm going to go to the login page CSS file that we created, and I could paste it here, right? So I literally tested out align items center. I don't know why I didn't copy that. And so, and then format. All right, so that looks good. By the way, because we're doing login page, we could do the height like this. It looks fine. Let's kind of come back here. So that looks like okay. So we have our form. Now we want to make sure that we maybe give some space between these buttons. You know what I mean? Like, why not? So because we're using React Bootstrap, they have a lot of different classes to help us out. Let me go to just regular Bootstrap, and you could do, you know, type in padding to search, and it will show you margin and padding space. They have spacing utilities, so I don't have to write the CSS from scratch, and it kind of shows you have M for margins, P for padding, and then if you do PT, it'll be padding top. If you do MT, it'll be margin top. So instead of writing the CSS myself, I could just use the stuff they have. And so if I want to make the button have the space, I could use margin, let's see, margin right, they use E for end, and then do it, let's say 0.5, so that's 2. So let's kind of go here into my login form. So for instance, if I wanted to add space between the buttons here, I could do and add that class here. And so we want to do, let's add margin end, and let's do 2 so we could see it. And so like I don't have to write too much CSS, and eventually we'll write a lot of custom CSS, but for now I just want to make sure that it works. And then I'm going to refresh, and as you can see, now we created the space for that button. So that's very nice. And maybe I want to make this background different color, so I could, instead of writing the CSS myself, I could rely on Bootstrap classes. And what this allows me to do, it allows me to build out this application quickly and focus on the functionality and not the looks and feel, because at the end of the day, we're not web designers, we're web developers, so we want to make sure that we're always focusing on functionality first. But I'll go to my login page CSS, instead of doing like background red, which works, right? Like background red. What I want to do is I'm going to go and instead use stuff that is pre-made with Bootstrap already. So I'm just going to pass those utility classes. So I'm going to go to my login, and I think you could do, I believe it's BG primary, and it will use whatever the primary color is for the theming in Bootstrap. And so if I go here, notice how, boom, the color is changed. It's starting to look better. This button is kind of hidden. You can't see it. That's fine. We'll fix this. And then if I want to make the text white, I could do here, text white. And, when I come back here to my React, notice the text is white. And so this way, you don't have to write a lot of CSS from scratch. So I'm not telling you guys, Bootstrap all the way and everything, but what I'm saying is that obviously when you're starting out, let me kind of go back on the big screen here. When you're starting out, right, guys, you definitely want to learn HTML and CSS, but then you got to imagine you're like only one developer when working on projects at home, and so you can't do everything. And so using something like Bootstrap will allow you to speed up your development and move forward much quicker. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why we're using Bootstrap, is because we want to leverage stuff that already exists to make sure that our development goes by quicker and faster. And so we're making some, good progress here. We made like a very simple form. I don't know why I zoomed in like a lot for you guys here. And again, you want to focus on functionality first, and then you could make it look as pretty as you want, because if this app doesn't work, what's the point of building it? So that's kind of my approach, is build the most minimum viable product that you can that allows you to accomplish what we have to do. So, and then you could, focus on updating or making the thing look whatever you want. Because now, like, I know the form works, and now I could focus on CSS if I want. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, we'll continue working on this form. And so what I want to do now is, actually, let's go home. Let's do something fun. So I want to, instead of the like button, we could put an icon here. Cool library for React is called React Icons. And so you could check it out here. And then we could install this, and we could have access, like if we want to have heart, we could install and use an icon here. But let me know if you guys have any questions. So I disabled, this is a good one, I disabled JavaScript on YouTube website and couldn't see anything. Maybe it's more used. No, CSS is also used, but you have to understand that JavaScript is what the language of the web. Pretty much any application that you see out there, majority of them nowadays use JavaScript. You can't have just HTML and CSS. but majority of the applications that have functionality, they use JavaScript. So in today's world, it's like really hard to get away from not using, JavaScript. It's kind of like a must, and it's a requirement. That's what I'm telling you guys. If you're looking to get into web development, you have to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript first, and then like the basics, and then you got to jump into React and go from there. So let me know, guys, if you have huge questions. I think for now I'm happy as I can be with the state of the form. It's not super pretty, and I'm gonna show you like the actually I'll talk a little bit about it like in this video. So I have too many things open. Let me close some of this stuff. Close. Here's our application, right? Where's our application? Here it is. Here's our application. So we have our cards showing up, and we could fix the height and stuff like that, make sure the pictures look even. We could do that later. We have our login now working, and again, it's butt ugly. You know what I mean? But it works. Our functionality here works. I could type in my email, I could type in the password, submit the form. Well, I hit reset the form, idiot. Submit the form, and we are submitting the form, and we're passing the data that we will need to hook up the authentication when we start working with our back end. Also, one thing is, notice when I submit it, it did not reset the state. So usually a good practice, once the form is submitted, so let's go back to our form, and I'm just gonna copy and paste this part here because that's exactly the same function we're gonna call. So after the form submits, so once we submit the form, do some code here, what I want to do is I want to reset the form back to its initial state. So we're going to use set form data and reset it to initial form state. I just realized my screen wasn't showing. God damn it. So I was going to show you here. I already added it here. Let me close this. Hey, Hologram Nunchucks, thanks for sticking around for this long anyway. Love you, my man. Thanks for take care. You too, man. Thanks for stopping by as always. Really appreciate the support, and have a good rest of the night or day, wherever you are, evening, whatever it might be. So basically here, let me come back here. So I showed you here. So once you add your information, you hit submit the form gets submitted, but it doesn't reset the state of the form to the initial blank state that I was in. So let's go ahead and do that. So we basically just gonna use our set form data function that we're getting from our use state here, and we're going to pass the initial state. So now when we come back here and I submit the form, after the form is submitted, notice it resets back to its original state. We could do a lot of interesting stuff, but I just wanted to kind of show you that. And so is there a particular language skill you have to absolutely master before applying to the job? Yeah, not master. Like mastering takes forever. Like I'm still not a master. Like I have so much to learn, but you need to just understand the basics and be able to make portfolio projects. And this is the whole point of the stream, is I want to make sure you guys see that you need to be productive. You need to be able to work on building a portfolio. And this is why I'm building this project portfolio with you that's starting fairly simple and is going to evolve in this complexity to a point where whenever someone sees this application that we built, they're going to be like, oh man, you know what you're doing, and you're going to get hired for sure. But unless you have a portfolio that looks way better than this, and obviously it looks like crap right now because we're just starting out, but you have to understand that you need to build good quality projects that are complex enough for hiring managers to hire you. If you guys don't do that, it's going to be impossible to get hired. But with that being said, let me go to Trusty Udemy. What I recommend, and this is like, I swear by this, there's a lot of courses, and if you already have courses, you don't have to buy more courses. Actually, don't buy these courses if you already have courses. But my recommendation to all the students that get coaching from me is, because I don't want to just teach you to code, I want you to do work yourself as well. So I tell people you need to know HTML, CSS. So start with John Smigla HTML and CSS tutorial course like we have here. And look, there's a sale. I mean, there's sales going on all the time. then you need to know JavaScript. So go and take John Smigla's JavaScript tutorial project course, 40 hours of content. It's a lot of stuff. Go ahead, sign up. And then the last thing, at bare minimum, is go ahead and take the React tutorial project course by John Smigla. And again, I'm not sharing my screen because I'm an idiot. And so I'm showing you again. Go to Udemy, HTML, CSS tutorial project course by John Smigla is an amazing course. Then do JavaScript because JavaScript is required. And then do React tutorial and project courses by John Smigla. So the bare minimum, the three things that you need to do is you need to make sure that you know HTML and CSS, that you know JavaScript, the basics, and then you know React, and then you're building good projects. If you're not building projects, you're not going to get hired. This is the whole point of the stream, to show you how it's not easy. You see me struggle on the stream trying to figure stuff out. Sometimes I break stuff, sometimes I don't break stuff, but you got to put the struggle in while learning. So this is what I tell people. Tutorials teach you how to learn on your own. So after 3 and 4 tutorials, don't take any more tutorials. Start building projects. So tutorials don't get you jobs. You will never get hired because you took a tutorial. It'll never happen. You'll get hired because you have a portfolio project you built yourself from scratch. So tutorials prepare you to build stuff from scratch. But building stuff from scratch is what going to get you hired at your job. And that's why I stress it a lot. So to finish up here, we created our basic form, and what I'll do is I'll clean this up for next stream, and then we'll go over the changes that I did so we could focus on more. Yes, those courses are up to date, and I actually personally talked to John Smigla. He's an amazing guy, and he always, whenever new stuff comes out, he adds a section to the course, and he just literally redone all those courses. Just to give you an example, his React course, it used to do a lot of class-based components, but now class-based components are not that popular. It's all about functional React. And so he redid his course using functional components, and all the modern React that you need right now to get a job. So yeah, John Smigla, always up to date. So what I'm going to do is, kind of make some CSS changes for next stream, just to kind of round this out. Not too much stuff, and I'm gonna kind of talk over the changes that I made, so we could start continuing working not on so much CSS, but the functionality of the application, and literally hooking up the login functionality. And what I wanted to say, guys, I am going to devote 4 hours a week to giving back to the community, and so I'm going to start doing one-on-ones. And so let me share the link again if you guys want to jump in. And by the way, they are going to be free, no cost to you, but I'm giving up a lot of my time. And if you do want to support the channel, want to give some tips, you guys could do that. I'll figure out how to do that, maybe PayPal or like whatever. And if you don't, or you can't for whatever reason, that's perfectly fine too. I just want to give back to the community, so like 4 hours a week for now, like that's what I'm going to do. And obviously if someone wants to be more like, have a more scheduled thing, because the 4 hours a week, they're going to fill up pretty quick, because it's going to be first come first serve basis. So if you want to have more consistency and you're able to afford and pay for some sort of coaching, you could obviously do that route as well. But at least for 4 hours a week, you guys are going to have ability to get some one-on-one coaching and ask me questions about anything. So I'm going to share a link for introduction, kind of set up an appointment with me, and we could hook up. I put it in the chat. We could talk for 15 minutes to kind of talk about your goals, what you guys want to do, where you guys are stuck, because I do want to help you guys. That's the whole point of this channel. Is not just me growing my channel and being like, look how cool I am, but it's more about the fact that I want to help you guys achieve your goals and get to where you want to go. So to finish up, listen, if you're a beginner, I'll tell you this, is you might not know the mistakes you're making unless you talk to someone who could help you out. And listen, you don't have to take advantage of them. Like I said, 4 hours a week, I'm going to do them, for free, like for those who are interested, just so I could practice, teaching. I'm not saying that it's going to last forever. So if you want to take advantage of it, go ahead. But the point is, like, you could talk to someone
And because you're talking one-on-one, I could see where you are and I could give you some good steps to take. There's this girl that joined us. She's been on our Slack channel. I moved everybody to Discord now. Let me drop that link to our Discord if you guys are interested. But she did what I told her. I mean, granted, she did a massive work. She did like so much massive work. But by following my steps, she was able to get hired. And I told her she's got to come to the stream, but she's like, here, let me like work a couple of months. Let me get comfortable and acclimated to my environment. And then I'll come and talk to the stream, just to kind of let you know that it's not easy, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If you do certain steps and you work hard, you will get there. And she went from nothing to now working as a React developer. So here's the link for our Discord if you guys are interested. And what I'll do, like I said, for next class, I'll clean this up a little bit, not too much, just so we could briefly go over it at the beginning of next stream on Tuesday. And we have our form working. I'll make it look a little bit nicer. Yep. Listen, even if you're too bad, you might, by just jumping on, having a conversation, you could figure out, like, instead of thinking and guessing what you need to learn, you could have a detailed plan that I could tell you of what courses to take on Udemy, why to take them, and you could have a plan that you could implement and start learning, and know that what you're doing is not wasting time, right? I'm 41 years old. Like, my biggest thing is not wasting time, because I wasted a lot of time. I wasted 5 years learning to code before I actually learned anything. I could have had a job much sooner if I had someone like me kind of helping out and telling people what to do. So that's kind of what I would say, the reason why. And again, you don't have to take advantage of that. So like I said before, what I'll do for next stream, I'll clean up this form a little bit. I'll clean up the front page, and then we'll briefly be able to talk about what changes I made. And then we'll work on actually hooking up the login functionality. So once you log in, we're going to save the fact that you are authenticated user. It's going to kick you back to the home page, and you'll be able to either like or click the detail button that we'll put eventually, and basically move on to the next step. So that's what we're going to do. I want to say, like, I appreciate every single one of you guys. It means a lot to me when you guys are jumping in on the streams and you are participating, and I hope you guys learning a lot. And I know that sometimes you're shy about asking questions, but this stream is for you guys. You know, don't be shy, ask question, talk, you know, about what difficulties you're having, what problems that I could help you solve, and we'll, you know, work through this together, because I want you guys to succeed. I want you guys to get to where you want to go. I know it's not easy. I know it's hard. Anybody that tells you coding is easy, they're full of crap. They're lying to you. Coding is not easy. Coding is not, to get a job is hard. There's a lot of people that sell courses. Who knows, maybe one day I'll sell my own courses, but I'll never tell you that it's easy or that anyone in like 2 months, 1 month, 3 months could get a job. Sure, there are people that get lucky, you know, but, you know, like, it is work. It takes a lot of effort, and I want not to lie to you guys, and I want you to be prepared to do the work that is required to get a job. But man, any last burning questions before we end the stream tonight? You know, you guys are amazing. I really love the community that we have. I feel like so blessed, but being able to talk to you on this live stream, because you guys motivate me to do the things that I do here. You know, don't think that I'm just motivating you guys to get off your butt and code and do what you need to do, right? Like, you guys keep driving me to continue to succeed and do what I have to do to get ahead. But, you know, so thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to get back to normal video tutorials as well on the YouTube channel, just to kind of help out. But the best way to reach me, though, like, obviously these live streams or the Calendly link that I shared to you guys. And so with that being said, any last burning questions, anything you guys want to mention before we head out here? It could be any questions about anything, anything you guys want to do. What do you guys want to do? What do you guys want to talk about? silence. All right, guys. Well, then with that being said, I guess I'll just end the stream here. Thank you for everything. Much love to you guys. Have a great rest of the week. And I will see you guys on Saturday, 6 p.m. US Central Time, our Coffee Code and Chat stream. And if I don't see you then, I'll see you next Tuesday. Otherwise, man, peace, love, and happiness. And you guys have a good night and take care.